Welcome back to the Takeout. Let's bring in our reporter panel now. White House economic policy reporter for Semafor, Eleanor Mueller, and House leadership reporter for Politico, Riley Rogerson. I don't even know where to begin for this really roller coaster Friday. But Riley, I will begin with you because, started the day, I spoke with Speaker Mike Johnson. From the outset, he called Democrats and the Senate action detestable. So why, at the end of the day, did House GOP leadership, in essence, decide to blow up this DHS deal?
Right. They're furious, as you said. The problem that they had with what's going on in the Senate is that the Senate passed a deal that would fund the Department of Homeland Security except for ICE and parts of CBP. House Republicans are saying that's unacceptable because they want to see funding for those agencies pass. Mind you, the reconciliation bill that passed over the summer, the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, has millions of dollars in funding for ICE. So ICE will continue to be funded, but they still want to see it funded through this process additionally.
And, I also spoke earlier today with the Congressman Siscomani, who was involved in helping to negotiate the original DHS bill. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. Bottom line, if you have to swallow what the Senate sent over, you're willing to do that?
We're going to do the right thing. We're evaluating every single option out there that we have. What's the best path forward for it? We want to make sure that we fund DHS in this entirety, even if it's going to take a little longer. But we need to start getting our TSA agents paid and everybody else that has been working without any pay due to this Democrat shutdown.
So, Eleanor, I know there were a lot of Republicans who said, no, I'm not going to vote for the Senate bill by any means. But obviously, it seemed some were potentially open to this. So was that not enough? I mean, at the end of the day, was this about the Speaker not having the votes?
I think what has really added a wrench in the gears here is that the White House had signaled to the Senate that it would support the deal that they passed late last night, early this morning. And then House Republican leaders told their members on a call today that Trump actually supported the plan that they had come up with. And then we saw Speaker Johnson later say that publicly. And so I think we have two chambers both thinking that they're doing something that the president is on board with. And it seems that now he is really only on board with what the House has done. The Senate has left town. And that's making a big mess for these lawmakers to clean up.
But hasn't there been some mixed messaging from the president on this? I mean, he really didn't endorse a plan either way. And then now it seems like he's trying to put his thumb on the scale.
That seems to be part of the problem. It was a lot of backdoor conversations that led the Senate to believe that he would sign their legislation. And then he called Fox News today, said explicitly it would not be appropriate to pass a spending bill that did not have money for ICE, CBP, and he did not want them to enact what the Senate had passed. So now he's being a little more direct. He's telling them directly what he's looking for, but that's not what we were seeing earlier this week.
And do we have any more information on how the administration is going to pay TSA workers?
What we have been told is that it will be money from Republicans' mega bill that Riley mentioned earlier that already provided funding for some of this immigration enforcement that will be directed to the TSA officers. So that's an option that Republicans told us last night was on the table. They knew was on the table for a while. And then, of course, we saw the president actually say that he was going to proceed with it. And
Riley, I want to turn to some other news of day. Of course, those charges against Congresswoman Sheila Sherfilis-McCormick. We heard earlier from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who wouldn't say whether or not she should resign, but this has become a really tricky issue for Democrats.
Absolutely, and Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, her line of saying that she wasn't going to explicitly call for the Congresswoman to resign or be expelled at this point is pretty much consistent with what we heard from House Democratic leadership and most House Democrats that I talked to on Capitol Hill today. They said they're reserving judgment until the Ethics Committee can release a recommendation in about 2 weeks after the House returns from recess, assuming they go on recess.
I mean, what are the chances that the Congresswoman could be expelled?
Talking to enough Democrats today, there are a few who are willing to go as far as to say that this looks really bad, and if the Ethics Committee does recommend that she should be expelled, I'm willing to vote for her expulsion. So there also are many that are comparing the situation to George Santos, which, of course, House Democrats supported his expulsion a couple of years ago. So I think reading the tea leaves, it does seem like Democrats are willing to line up behind that, but we won't know for sure for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and how does that change the calculus, if any, in terms of just the numbers and dynamics on Capitol Hill? Because we know both sides have very narrow margins.
Removing a Democrat is excellent news for Speaker Mike Johnson and the Republicans. They're excited at the prospect of expanding their majority, which has been razor thin for months and months. So Democrats, they're loath to kick out one of their own, but it sounds like they are potentially willing to do so.
All right, Riley and Eleanor, we thank you so much. Of course, our night is not over as we follow these developments on Capitol Hill. Thank you, ladies.